stop so then eventually get on her radar.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order a workshop of the City Council of Satellite Beach, April 4th, 2018, approximately 6:45, to interview a board applicant, Mark Boyd. Mark, please take a seat there. Thank you for applying. And I'm glad we don't have a gator or something like that here. I've read your resume. We need kind of some diversity around here. But thank you. Welcome. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. I had a great opportunity to speak with you the other day, and thank you for coming forward.
Thank you, sir. My name is Mark Boyd. I was born at Holmes Regional in 1982. Spent the first 15 years of my life living in the Atlantic, during which time I spent a fair amount of time in Satellite Beach because I had friends who grew up here and who I got to know when I was going to Montessori School in Indian Harbor Beach. But grew up in Brevard County and then moved down to Vero Beach to finish up high school and moved away. Went off to college at Duke in North Carolina, went to law school at the University of Georgia, and this is what I tell people. I moved away with the intention of going to law school for 3 years and came back 13 years later because I enjoyed it up there, but when it came time to go back into private practice, I was a prosecutor up there for the past almost 7 years of my time practicing. When I wanted to go back into private practice and also raise a family, wanted to come back home here to Brevard. My wife Jessie and I recently purchased a home here in Satellite on Norwood. We love it here. We very much actively chose Satellite amongst the communities in Brevard that we looked at, and one of the things that attracted us to it is the sense of community there is here, and also the beautiful parks that there are, beach accesses and all that. With regard to the Sustainability Board, which is the board which would be my first option if there is availability, from the think globally standpoint, environmental issues are something that I've cared about for a long time. In the act locally standpoint, moving back here, there's a lot of good things about Brevard that I knew from growing up here. There's a lot of positive things I feel like that have happened from a cultural standpoint during the time that I've been gone. But one thing that has really struck me is the environmental challenges I feel like we face as a community. One of the things that attracted me to Satellite Beach, even when I was doing internet research from my home in the middle of Atlanta, was the fact that the city appears to be being proactive about sustainability and addressing those issues, and that's something I really would like to be a part of in any way I can help, and that's really why I've applied here today.
Great, thank you. I've had a great opportunity to talk to Mark, and I spent a lot of time with his grandpa, so I know the family well, and thank you for applying. Questions?
I don't have a question. Actually, just kind of answered it when he talked about sustainability, why he'd like to be on the sustainability board and items like that, which I think gave it a pretty good rundown. Obviously, in my neighborhood, they're down around the corner. So, welcome, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Just one question, Mark. Any challenges or issues you see in Satellite Beach that you think might need to be addressed, other than the environmental stuff?
And I'm not blowing smoke because you're there's nothing that immediately comes to mind from the time that I've been living here. I think that infrastructure is a challenge that faces our whole nation and certainly our county, and I think that extends to the city. So if I was going to identify an issue other than the environment that I think probably needs everyone's concern, it would be that. But I think that there's nothing distinct about Satellite with regard to that, but that would be the other issue that I think is a challenge for us, again, as a nation, a state, and a county and a city.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've had the opportunity to talk to Mark. I think he's going to be a great asset wherever we end up putting you. I hope that we can slot you into the Sustainability Board. I know there's some seats that are kind of switching around, so we'll do our best to get you there.
Okay. And if there's not availability this time, if there's something else that would fall into my general, obviously I'm interested in the environmental issues. I do have legal training, but I do that all week long, so, yeah.
Understand.
Mindy, anything?
Oh, no, I know Mark,
Okay.
I already know.
Great.
Good guy.
Mark, that's it, bud, thanks.
Okay.
It's an agenda item towards the end of our agenda. You're more than welcome to stay for our council meeting, which starts at 7.
Okay.
And towards the end of our meeting, we have appointments to boards. And if you don't feel like staying, not a big problem at all, we'll get a hold of you.
I'll stay because I've never seen a meeting before, so.
Okay, great. Thank you
sir.
very much. Any further questions from the council? Hearing none, meeting is adjourned. We'll start at 7 on our council. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the City Council of Satellite Beach, April 4th, 2018, approximately 7 p.m. Please join me in a moment of silence and the pledge. And a pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have 2 proclamations to read. The first one, I have asked our sweet Julie to please read Relay for Life, Paint the Town Purple. Julie has, if you ever realize the amount of time this lady puts into things she does for the city, it's amazing. So, Julie, if you would please.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas the American Cancer Relay for Life movement was founded by Dr. Gordy Klatt in Tacoma, Washington in 1985 and is the world's largest fundraising event to end cancer. Whereas Relay for Life event unites more than 5,200 communities together to fight against cancer. Relay for Life is an activity that promotes cancer awareness, celebrates cancer survivors and caregivers, remembers loved ones and ones lost to the disease, and empowers individuals and communities to fight back against cancer. The City of Satellite Beach is a proud participant in this important endeavor to bring the community together to support all those who have been impacted by the disease. Now, therefore, Frank Catino, Mayor of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, does here proclaim April 21st as Relay for Life Paint the Purple Town Days. The city encourages our community to help fight against cancer by participating in the Relay for Life event at Satellite Beach High School on April 21st, 2018, and that event is from noon until 10 p.m. with lots of entertainment, and we're also having City Field Day that day. So I please would love to see all your faces.
Yay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
On behalf of the American Cancer Society and Relay for Life, I would like to honor the City of Satellite Beach as a Relay for Life community. Thank you. As a Relay for Life community, well-deserved. Since your participation in 2015, the City of Satellite Beach has raised almost $30,000 to the American Cancer Society in our fight against cancer. So thank you, Julie, and the City of Satellite Beach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick? And this is a proclamation for Earth Day. Nick, ever since he's...
I'll take one of those, yeah.
It's amazing. I'm driving down DeSoto Parkway yesterday or the day before, and there's Nick out there hauling sod around and working on to make it a better place. So we're going to read this as an official proclamation. Whereas April 21st, 2018 marks the 48th anniversary of Earth Day. Since 1970, Earth Day has continually served as a designated event for the encouragement of environmental protection. And whereas all Floridians are encouraged to take part in environmental conservation and protection at home, school, and neighboring communities. And whereas the ecosystem of Florida sustains plants, animals unique to our environment, Florida has 1,260 miles of breathtaking coastline along an ocean with miles of beautiful coral reefs, and has approximately 3.4 million acres of conservation land managed by the state agency. And whereas because the future of Florida's economic and environment depends on our health of our water bodies and natural resources, all Floridians should take part in environmentally friendly habits such as recycling and water conservation. Now therefore, I, Frank P. Catino, Mayor of the City of Satellite Beach, do hereby proclaim April 21st, 2018 as their Earth Day. Nick, thank you, buddy, for your hard work.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
There you go.
I'm going to hang this in my office.
Good man.
If you don't mind, I'll say a few words to council, and a few words to our guests today. Council, thank you so much for everything that you do to be a sustainable city. It is my great honor to work with you, for you, and to be part of this team. With that in mind, and with that, as Frank said, he did see me on DeSoto, I wanted to invite everyone here to, as well as everyone else in the audience, to join on the 21st, which is the day before Earth Day, and also the same day as the Relay for Life event, which everyone should go out to the Relay for Life event. But before they go out to that, I wanted to let everybody know that on Facebook and on our city website, we'll have information about a volunteer opportunity to plant native plants, because what would Earth Day be if we weren't helping to plant native plants in our community? And as a community that's a coastal community, these native plants serve many roles to filter air, water, nutrients before they go out into the lagoon, create habitat for our wildlife, and they are also aesthetically pleasing and beautiful. And as Dominic knows very well, there is a trifold flyer that was mentioned at last night's meeting that I'm going to mention again, that we're going to be putting out to our residents. And if you see one of these come in your mailbox, please do open it and read it. There is some really great information on projects and workshops to be more sustainable, which is part of our Sustainability Action Plan. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. And thank you, everyone, so much for being a part of this great city. And I'm so happy that we could do this.
Great. Thank you so very much, buddy. Thank you.
Nick, what time are we planting plants that day? You have-
Well, on night 2, but you can leave 12 and go to
And where are we doing this?
right along DeSoto. You'll see it. You can't miss it.
If you haven't been down to Soda, you'll go down the middle of the aisle.
Signs there now.
Thank you, Nick, very much. Moving on to agenda item 4, citizens' comments. This is for non-agenda items. The floor is open for non-agenda items. Hearing that, please. That's fine.
Hi, my name's Jeff Chastain. I lived at 650 Jamaica Boulevard. I would like to address the city council for a couple of minutes on something that I've been doing kind of informally for about a year now as an experiment. And this has to do with the no animals on the beach ordinance. For about a year now, I have been paying attention. Most of the time when I go to the beach, I go to Peg Legs, I fish there, I surf there. I'm not there every week, but darn near. And it is a rare occasion for me to go down there and not see at least one dog. And most of the time, not always, but most of the time, when somebody has a dog down at the beach, it's not just down there, but it's off the leash as well. So when I see that at Peg Legs, and only at Peg Legs, because that's part of my experiment, if I have my phone, I'll call the police station. And officers always show up and speak to the person, and the person, you know, most of the time leaves with the dog, but not always. And oftentimes after the officers have left and the person with the dog has left, they come back with their dog. And I've never engaged any of these people and asked them like, hey, why are you doing that or anything, so I don't really know. But I do know that the officers speak to them, and then, you know, I think they largely disregard it. So I don't know what the conversation is that takes place between the officer and the person, but it's, you know, largely disregarded, I think. And never have I seen, and it doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but I personally have not seen citation issued for that ever. And my objection to dogs on the beach doesn't have anything to do necessarily with, hey, well, what if your dog goes poo on the beach? Because naturally, that's always met with, yeah, but I'm a responsible dog owner, and I would clean it up, and so on and so forth. And to anybody that would counter with that, I would say, yeah, well, you know, most of us, when we use the toilet in our own home, we flush it as well, but we wouldn't afterward ask our kids to stick their feet in there after it was cleaned. And, you know, the beach is really about the only place in town that we go, and it's, you know, generally just a given that you play there with no shoes on. And, you know, my concern is not only that, but I think it has more to do with disruption of nesting and mating and feeding seabirds and that sort of thing. And I'm no expert on that, and I don't pretend to be, but I think that is somewhat significant. And throughout the city of Satellite Beach, I would, you know, pose a question to council. Throughout the city of Satellite Beach, how many places do we have where folks who want to be able to run around and play and things like that outdoors and not be with other people's pets for whatever reason, how many places do we have that are conducive to that? And it is, as near as I can tell, it is part, I mean, there is a sign at just about every public access that says clearly, no animals on the beach. And sometimes I see people walking across the steps there with their dog and their children. And what occurs to me is, how do you navigate that issue with your kids that, hey, kids, you know, the rules that I give you at home, they're important and you have to follow them, but these here, you know, maybe not so much. And, you know, again, I've never asked anybody that question, but so my request to council is, and I don't know how this works, but in some way to encourage the police department to be a little bit more assertive in their enforcement of that.
Jeff, thank you. One issue there, Courtney, if I'm not mistaken, the police chief, I thought one time or something, gave us a little presentation on that. And do you remember when he said to us that there was certain things he was allowed to ask people with dogs on the beach? And
Like if they're service dog or not?
For service dogs.
Yes.
right. So if they said to the person, this is a, please, yes, if you would help us out there.
If they claim to have a service dog, there's only a couple of questions to be asked. Is, I believe one of them is, what service does the dog provide? And there's one other one. They don't have to have vests. They don't have to have any documentation. They don't have to show us anything. We can't have them prove anything to us. As soon as we do, that's the violation, federal law violation. So there's very limited stuff that we can do. Now, dogs that are running around loose on the beach are not service dogs. So if we get called out, we'll make contact with those folks, and usually, if they don't get a citation, their name still goes into our system. So this way, if we have repeat customers, then they start getting citations from that point.
It is interesting to me that because I go to the same beach all the time, that the people that I see doing it are, I don't know what percentage, but generally the same people. And, you know, I understand part of the appeal of taking your dog to the beach is that, you know, is to let it off the leash and let it run. I mean, you can see the dog's having a bunch of fun, and I get that. So, and I've heard that before too, and you know, clearly that's very important. So I don't really know how the police navigate that, but I mean, clearly there's a lot of folks that their dogs aren't service dogs and they're not heeding those warnings.
Courtney, could we
I'll look into it.
look into it, please, and have a report back on it, Jeff, and we'll get with you on it.
Oh, well, you don't even have to do that.
No, we'll follow through with it because it is obviously something important enough for you to come here, and we'll look into it.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
There was actually a bill in the legislature this year that dealt specifically with the definition of service dogs, and I don't think it went anywhere, but it will come back again next year, because clearly this is an issue that the state is looking at because of problems with people claiming that. So, see what happens.
Floor is still open for public comment on non-agenda items?
Alan Dillon, 670 Kenwood Court, Satellite Beach. In listening to the last gentleman, I understand, and I agree with him. We go to the beach, go there. There are people out there without dogs, or with dogs on the beach, and there are some without leashes on them. But I guess I pose this question is, where on our beaches can people take a dog other than Canova, which is not here?
There isn't.
Now there's been a push on for the last, year or 2 years to maybe allow people to be on the beach before 9 o'clock, and after, 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, there's a push going, and whether it's ever going to make it, I don't know. But I think it's something that we owe to the pet owners, if they're responsible pet owners. Certainly, the dogs and animals will go on the beach. So will raccoons, so will possums, so will a lot of stuff. But if you're a responsible pet owner, you're going to pick up after your animal. Now, if you want to run them on the beach, that's illegal. We know that. You go to the dog park, you got off-leash park, and you can run them over there. So, I guess my point is we need to look at what people are experiencing there at the beach, but we need to provide some sort of an avenue for people that are dog owners to be able to actually utilize the beach itself. And walking up and down the beach, if you go to Canova, you got 100 yards. That's it. Now, how can you exercise a dog on 100 yards? And then you're weaving in around a gazillion people, depending on what time of the day it is or what day of the week it is. So I would like the city council to look at both sides of this thing, and let's see if we can come up with something that's acceptable to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Podium still open for non-agenda items.
My name is Matt Fleming. I live at 1777 Highway A1A in the south end of Satellite Beach. I am heading an effort called Save the Midreach, and we've attended several city hall meetings here in Satellite Beach over the last couple months in an effort to get the city to work with us in creating 3 resolutions. I do want to say that I 100% support the resolution that's being put forth by Surfrider to where the city is going to appeal to the state for money for purchasing damaged or threatened structures. But the resolutions we were asking for was to test the material independently of the county, to reject anything that's going to bury any part of the reef, and just a resolution, just a public statement against it. And the third resolution was to, obviously resolve to include more education about the natural reef in city activities and whatnot. And I've reached out to everyone here on those resolutions, and my requests for assistance have been outright rejected, and I've even had a lot of things that are untrue about me and untrue about the beach said in the course of that process. And I just have one question: why?
Thank you for your comments. Public comments are still open? And then I'll close it. I'll make a comment on that. We, as a collective group here with our city manager, we thought our best action was the proclamation we did with Surfrider. That was the best one we felt was legally that we could do at this time. And we're going to stick with that proclamation to move forward with that at this time. We've discussed it to no end. I know each of the members, I'm pretty darn sure, has spent quite a lot of time talking with our city manager. I can tell you I have. He probably doesn't want to see me anymore for that. But we are doing a lot. We did do a test of it. We're relying on people who are very good scientists, we feel, with the county, who are testing this project. We did a test, And if every time we have to do a test, it costs us over $8,000, and the test has already been done by the county, we feel that the county has really worked hard on this particular project, very hard on it.
For years.
Yes, for years. And they are the testing, and I have talked to the county on this, and they assure me that their testing is coming back very well on it. And for me, as a sitting member on this council, to go against what they're saying after I just ran a test for $8,000, I think it's redundant. And I know the county's working hard on it, and I think as a council, we feel right now that that's our best avenue. So, again, any further public comment? Hear none. Close the public again and move on to council comments. Mindy?
I attended the Junior Sustainability Board meeting last Wednesday, the very first one. So for those of you that don't know, Delora Middle School has set up their own sustainability board, and they had their first meeting here in the council chambers. It was very good. Nick did a good job guiding them on their way. I'm very excited that our youth are this involved, and that they were so excited, and it sounds like there was quite a few kids that wanted to be involved in it, and they had some really good ideas, and I think they're going to do good and learn a lot about the government side and the way government works and what the role of the government is and how to manage a meeting. And then the other side is the sustainability side, which is so important to all of us in the community. And I feel very proud of our community in the sense that these kids at this age, when I was 13, I was not caring about sustainable initiatives. Okay, it was out having fun with my friends. So this is impressive, and we should all be proud of the people that we have raising our children in this area. So other than that, I don't really have anything else to add.
I just want to thank staff for the utilities presentation last night. I think it went extremely well. There was a lot of information shared, and if you would please convey our thanks to Brevard County and to Melbourne Water and to David King for presenting the city stormwater portion of it. I think it went really well, and I think a lot of people went away from it at least better understanding the dynamics of the three different topics that were talked about. So you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
I have none.
Back in January, I gave a Communities for a Lifetime presentation in Indy Atlantic, and about 3 weeks later got a request from the Space Coast League of Cities for us to do a Communities for a Lifetime presentation in May, at the May meeting, the 14th or 15th, whatever it is that meeting is. Sent Courtney a note earlier, well, yeah, I guess it was yesterday, and just wanted to run it past council to make sure this is okay. What I'd like to do this time is really kind of highlight what we've done, not just with one department, but in particular with the Satellite Beach Police Department and the Stop By and Say Hi program. That's really a really good program, and I think we'd like to kind of show that to the communities. That's something that other communities could adopt pretty easily if they wanted to do that. So I've got a request out for information, photos, and all that sort of thing, but I wanted to ask the council if that's okay if we, in that Communities for a Lifetime presentation, I was going to ask either Chief or Linda Harlow or whoever wanted to step up, or Courtney or whatever, to assist with that presentation and put that on at our League of Cities meeting in May. Would that be all right with council?
And I think Linda Harlow would be the perfect person to do that. It's her baby, and she should have the ability to brag about it.
We have two speakers that night, you and there's somebody coming down from the league to do some stuff too. So you're probably going to have about 20 minutes.
Okay. I'd
be there anyway.
I'd kind of like to just warm it up, and then if Linda's available, turn it over to her, if that's okay. But you're probably going to need to talk to her about that. But whoever you pick, I just would rather have it come from them than from me, if you don't mind.
Perfect.
Okay.
I think she'd do great. I know last year when I went to speak at Aging Matters and talk about some of these things, Linda was a wealth of information and really helped me out by giving me all the information and background and stuff on it when I went up there.
And it's very personal for her, so
yes.
and that comes across in her presentation about it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
We'll see you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, I'd like to just also comment on last night's meeting, Town Hall. First, I want to thank the citizens for coming out. I think we were a little worried. We didn't get a lot of feedback that we would have an audience. We had really a great audience, and we appreciate that very much for all those who came out. I think it was good information, and it's a good starting point to build good relations there. So thank you, everybody, from our citizens who came out. Moving on, City Attorney's report.
I have nothing.
City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. This weekend, we have Trash Bash with KBB at 8 a.m. in the morning. We will be doing this at, I'm looking at Julie with the 8 a.m. thing. We're going to be doing this at O'Galley Causeway this time. And the reason why we are doing that is because our beaches are so clean, we lose every year because we don't pick up enough trash to win the competition. So we thought we would leave the city and try to go to other places that all of our residents use. All of our residents are out there too, using that area. So we thought we'd help out in that area. So we're going to be concentrating on that on the Causeway this year. April 7th, we have Hook Kids on Fishing, sponsored by Anglers for Conservation, and that'll be taking place at Satellite Beach Library Ponds starting at 8:30. Pre-registration is required by April 6th by calling the Recreation Department. We have two major events on Saturday, April 21st. From 12 to 10 p.m. at Satellite High School will be the annual South Beaches Relay for Life event. And that event, which has been primarily organized by Julie and her friend sitting there next, that event will also include our field day event for the Mayor's Fitness Challenge. So we're going to be combining those two events for a big boom. We're also going to have the Earth Day event over at the DRS Center. So that'll start at what time? I'm sorry? 9 to 2. From 9 to 2. And that'll have vendors and, all things earthy. I received an email from Peg Utek kindly from thanking the City of Satellite Beach Police Department for friendly interactions with children during a scavenger hunt, and that's in your packet. We also received another thank you from Kay and Don Williamson, thanking the fire department staff, Darren Plecki and Nick Walsh for their assistance. I wanted to let you know that we do have smoke testing of the sewer system that has started across the city. Several sections have been completed already and our staff has been with the contractor during that period of time. So sometimes people run out and they see us, they go, okay. But we've been capping as we've been moving along if there's been any issues. And we are developing currently right now with the county the program for the line replacement, the private line replacement. And that was presented last night at the utilities workshop. I'm already getting very good feedback from residents that attended that workshop. They've sent me emails as well as posted things to Facebook thanking us for that workshop. So that's good news. We have on April 26th at the Civic Center, we have our climate change project community workshop, and that'll be the final citizen workshop where we'll be presenting all of the findings of the Stetson Hazes mapping project. All of the current policies that we're moving forward with the city. So we'll be taking our comprehensive plan policies that we adopted with the last project and showing how we're moving into implementation, and we'll be making a large presentation on that. And then we're also going to be doing some policy scenarios, kind of like group scenarios with the community, trying to get their opinions on certain subject matters, but getting them to work through it from a different perspective. So we'll have facilitators at that meeting to help that through. That's going to be at 6 o'clock. And then to let you know that I will be out of town from April 21st through the 23rd for the APA conference, the national conference. I won't be out of the state for that period of time. So I'm trying to keep my credits for my AICP.
Courtney, one other thing. Saturday or Sunday, I believe, really important thing, pancake breakfast. Lions Club pancake breakfast. Kind of like a tradition.
It's Sunday.
It's Sunday.
Sunday.
Sunday. So the Lions Club puts it on. Great group of people, great volunteers. So Sunday.
This Sunday.
Any questions for the city manager? Courtney, thank you very much. Moving on to Agenda 8, presentation of the impact of potential increase to ad valorem stormwater utility and waste management fees. Brittany, thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm going to sit here only because it's going to be kind of a long discussion. This way I can get everyone, so I don't feel like I'm just putting my back towards people. We're putting up here what you should already have in your agenda packets, but this way everyone can see it here as well. So this is really to go back from in March when we had our budget workshop. We went over the 5-year plan of what we kind of think things are going to happen. And it was suggested that you would like us to put together what you thought the citizens would have to pay more if we raise the millage rate, raise the stormwater rate, raise the utility taxes, and the waste management. So that is what we have done. And this is all due to remind you of the $600,000 decrease in ad valorem that we anticipate to happen in November. On the ballot, there is an additional $25,000 homestead exemption. If it passes, it will be a $600,000 decrease in ad valorem to the city. So in anticipation of that, we are trying to put something together to kind of have an idea of how we're going to fix that hole. So on the first sheet that you will see, I've taken at the top of the ad valorem, you will see at the top for all of Satellite Beach, the assessed value. That is every single resident in the city of Satellite Beach. Whether they're homestead, they don't have homestead, they're commercial, that's everybody. Shows you the exemptions, the total taxable value, what currently with our millage rate at 8.1518, what we propose, and the difference. So that means that if we were to change the millage rate to an 8.14, the city would get an additional $210,000. The question was, what's that going to do to the citizens on average? So the next line you'll see, on average, there'll be an additional $41 on your ad valorem property tax bill across the city, okay, as an average. So that's for ad valorem. The next box, are there any questions about that before I move further? Okay. The next box below is the stormwater. I have reached out to Brevard County as the stormwater is on our property tax bill as well. So they have given me a bunch of information to kind of show how the number of customers we have, their codes, which then specify what they are, condos, townhomes, commercial, multifamily, etc. What the current revenue is to our city, current per household. What the suggestion is to propose an increase, we would go from 104 ERUs where we currently are. The proposed rate is to go to 200 ERUs, which would then allow to get an additional $484,000 to the city in the stormwater, which those of you who were there last night at the meeting, in order to do the stormwater master plan, this is what we're looking at to be able to bring additional funds into the city to make that master plan happen. So that is where this suggestion comes from. Are there any questions there? The next one is the utility tax. This is proposing to put a 10% tax on the water. Currently, we do not have a tax on the water, so this would just be a 10% tax. This revenue would go into your capital assets fund to help with infrastructure. So currently, you can see what the customers are, what the total billing is. The proposed 10% is going to add an additional $200,000 to our capital assets fund to help with infrastructure and allow not as much, because currently right now we a lot of times have to move money from the general fund to the capital assets fund to help with different things that we have going on there. So this will help alleviate doing that, since we're going to have a $600,000 hit to our general fund. Below that is the waste management.
Brittany, before you go down there, basically, if we do this, this is a designated funding source specifically for this purpose.
For the utility tax? The utility tax would go straight into your capital assets fund.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right, I just want to make sure we clarified that.
I did have a question
Yes.
on the water tax.
Uh-huh.
So are there other municipalities that are taxing their water?
Good question. We and the city of Melbourne are the only two cities currently in Brevard County that do not tax their water.
Do not, okay.
That information came from the city of Melbourne, so if it's incorrect, I will have to verify with them because that's what he told me.
Thank you.
So the last box is the waste management. Currently, the franchise fee is 10%. We are recommending to go to a 15%. In June every year, Waste Management automatically puts an additional fee normally that goes up. So what we've done here is we've showed you what the current monthly rate is, what Waste Management is saying that the rate's going to be as of June 1st of 2018, and then we're showing you what it would be for what we're proposing at a 15%. So all the way at the very right-hand side, you'll see the annual difference of how much of additional annually to somebody's waste management bill. And that includes the current rate, plus the rate that's going to go into effect on June 1st, plus if we were to change it from 10% to 15%. Does that make sense? Okay. So taking all of that into consideration, the next page, we provided some examples of single-family residences, townhomes, some other single-family residences at different assessed values and taxable values. We put a townhouse in there that has no exemptions at all, and we put a couple of commercial buildings in there as well. I did state who those were for the commercial buildings because I felt like that you would probably want to know your local restaurants and things that are going to be affected. With the Walgreens and the Publixes, they're franchises, they're big companies. You know, you want to know what the impact is on some of your smaller restaurants and stuff that are in the city. Now, please remind you that this is all just a estimate of how this is going to play out. This is not exact numbers. These are assessed values from January of 2017 because obviously we do not have the current assessed values yet. We will be getting those in June. So currently, the assessed values that I have, the taxable value there, the difference is the exemptions that those properties specifically have. What they currently pay at an 8.1518 millage rate, what we're proposing at an 8.4 millage rate, and then the difference. So you can see the single-family residence at the top is a difference of $31.41. You have a townhouse at $22.56. Again, when we talk about the average being about $41, you can see where that falls into play. Below that, I have done the same thing with the single-family, the townhomes, and the commercial for the stormwater, giving you what they currently pay, what we're proposing they pay, and the difference if we were to increase the stormwater from 104 ERUs to 200 ERUs. The utility tax is the same way. What the current is, the proposed, putting the tax of 10% on the water, what the difference in pay that would be, as well as the waste management. The box in the middle down there that says an additional annual increase for fiscal year 18-19, this is ad valorem at 8.4, the stormwater, the utility tax, and the waste management. So that first single-family residence that had the assessed value at $176,000 would pay an additional $180.29. The townhouse would have an additional $123.19. The next single family that has the assessed value at $135,000 would have $170.16, and it follows. Then you have the ones that has the no exemptions would be $137, and then your two commercials. I'm going to stop there for a minute. It's a lot of information, and I want to make sure
I
that
don't come up with the 180.29 on the single family. Okay, well, then I might be figuring it wrong. I have the ad valorem is $41 difference. Correct?
Okay, so you're going to take that top single-family residence at $31.41.
Yes.
Plus the $95.99 on the stormwater. Yeah.
Okay.
Plus the residential of the utility tax of $37.88. And the residential waste management of $15.
Okay, I got 41 on the average satellite beat difference. No?
That's from the page before on the average of all of them. But
Right, that's
the
the
one on the
average
second
ad
page,
valorem.
on the second page is actual
Okay.
estimate.
Yeah, we just picked a few out, that way you guys could look at them specifically for total assessed and what they actually would be paying as an increase if we changed the millage rate.
Okay.
I did what you did, if you took all the averages that they did on the first page, and I got,
It's 251, right?
well, I got 190, if you added the 41, 96, 38, and 15. Averages.
All right. I took the averages at 41, 96, 99, and 15.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that would be fiscal year 18-19. Because if the homestead exemption is passed, it does not come into play until the fiscal year 19-20. So the next box below is showing you the assessed value, the taxable value, the additional homestead exemption, what their new taxable value would be, what it would be at the millage rate if we kept it the same at 8.1518, what it would be at an 8.14, and then the savings you have between the 8.15 and the 8.4 compared to fiscal year 18-19. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So then below, we've literally taken the same box that was above and put it down below, but then put your savings in. So if the homestead exemption passes and you get the full $25,000 exemption, more than likely, you're going to end up saving money in 19-20 than you did in 18-19, even with all the raises that we're proposing to make. Now, that does not happen to everybody who doesn't have a homestead exemption. It's part of the homestead exemption understanding how it works that, yes, this person may over here save that money, but all you're doing is passing it on to the other person who doesn't have that homestead exemption. And I think that's important to note, and that's one of the reasons why we put an example in here of a townhouse that doesn't have any exemptions. Their taxable value isn't going to change from 18-19 to 19-20. Questions?
Questions from council?
The biggest hits to the commercials come from the stormwater.
That is correct.
So I'm going to play the devil for a second, sorry. The increase in stormwater, at some point, the cost of repairs should level out to where all that we're doing is maintenance. So wherever that cross is, once it's reached, you drop back the stormwater back to a figure that would be essential just to maintain. Because right now, we're not in maintaining, obviously. We've got very old stormwater pipes and so forth, and it's going to take X dollars to get to a figure to repair, right? To come to that. You and I have had this talk, right? Then, at that point, there's a maintenance. So is this something that we're planning on putting on because we're always going to need that dollar figure to keep on that maintenance line? Or are we going to say, you know, we're going to do this for 5 years, and then when we get caught up, we drop it back down? Just
There's no,
playing the devil here, just
what
for a
you
minute.
heard last night was, we're needing this to do maintenance. And then you're also water quality on top of that. And we're also adding in, you know, some of the maintenance that we're doing when we're doing pipe replacements, we're having to change out to larger pipes and different types of flood attenuation because of the different types of rain we're getting now and different water table problems that we're experiencing. So
I'm just making sure I say, you know, just something I've always, you know, wondered is there's got to be a cross. You've got to hit that center to do it. Where is that? You know, my thing is, what does it cost the city?
I think if you get to that cross, and if that cross doesn't happen until it's 10 years down the road, by that point, your 104 wouldn't maintain at those days and those prices anyways for the price of the dollar. So you'd still, if we don't raise this now, I think what ends up happening is you end up raising it $10 a year every year from now to even when you get to that point, because you're still going to need it at that point. I think Courtney makes a good argument every time. She says, name a time when any of our bills ever get lower. I mean, nothing ever goes down. It always just keeps going up, no matter what you do. I mean, you know. That's why I said I wouldn't foresee that. I just don't think the laws of prices and inflation, and even if you got to your cross, as you're saying, and I agree, I think at that point, that's what it's going to cost to maintain at that point, even when we're caught up.
I just want, you know, my thing is I am pro-river and pro-doing, you know, for making sure we do it right, because we've been dumping in there for forever. I just want to make sure that from our seats here, we cover every angle, we ask the questions, and it's not that I'm for or against it and that. I just want to make sure we're just looking at everything. I
And we
know
just
how you
wanted,
guys
all
are.
of these are proposed rates too.
Right.
And so when we come back, like with the stormwater, we'll have a more detailed plan to present what encompasses that fee that we're recommending. We just wanted to make sure that you saw when you were asking, what is the total tax burden when you're looking at city taxes? And this basically is the total. So this is what we assess our residents on a yearly basis. And if we increase that to what we believe that we're going to come to you with, this is what they would have to deal with.
And just go along with what you just said, and one part of that, if you went, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rennie, but what we said is, so that single-family residence, for example, the first year would go up $180. But realistically, when you get to the next year, it's actually $29.71 backwards, cheaper, after that goes in there. So it's not like it's going up $180 every single year going forward. It'll actually drop back. You'll pay less after that. So you do kind of get a drop out of it.
And you see that drop, that's why we're recommending to raise the millage rate this budget year coming up, because we need to replenish the reserves before that big drop.
You know, from talking with David King, and he and I had a conversation, you know, everything that we have been doing in the city has been the easy picking stuff. And there's still things that need to be done that are going to encompass the new technology that's coming out, and that stuff is not cheap. It's going to be expensive to do the projects that are coming forward that are going to get us to where the BNAPs all say we need to be with the nutrient load. So, you know, this is an ongoing scenario that we're going to be dealing with, and Steve's right. You know, we could slot it out here and there, but ultimately, the big picture is we're going to be dealing with this, and we've got to make good decisions on how we approach where we need to be.
Well, last night was interesting, and I'll bring that back, and I discussed it with Courtney and Mayor Schechter. We had a very good audience there last night who very much learned a lot from it. And I talked to Courtney on it that either we got everybody that was pro-environment and not so anti-taxes, but I think people are starting to realize that if we spend the money correctly and wisely to do good things that are right environmentally, it's going to help us all. And that this infrastructure we have is old. I mean, not only just in our city, but you heard the county give their presentation also. So if we don't fix it, then yeah, we're going to be really in trouble.
And if you recall back when in 2013 we had we made that presentation to you of where we were financially, and we made the decision not to. We actually sent back a 319 grant for the Glenwood trunk line, and the reason why we did that was because the stormwater fund, the debt service was exceeding the revenues, because the city had made decisions in the past to not raise the rate and instead go to debt service to complete these major projects, which is terribly unsustainable in the long term. And so we actually stopped doing projects for a couple of years to get the fund back where it should be. And we still have debt service in the fund. So when, you know, we're hoping that we can do more cash projects and stop having to go out to debt service if we can get a good rate in at the time.
Great. Okay, Mark.
I kind of raised this the last time it came up, and I kind of turfed it on Dom, but I'm going to follow up with you, Dom. From the League of Cities standpoint, either Florida or Space Coast, what's being done to kind of educate the public or the processes on the impact that this extra 25 will have? Is there anything planned or anything like that that's coming along? I mean, I would think a lot of cities other than just us are in this same boat. So that's, you know, I asked that one a couple of months ago, but any feedback?
I've not heard, other than, you know, just the Florida League of Cities being concerned about it. I don't know if there's anything proactively going on from their perspective, to fight it. I think there are other entities out there that they are working with that are doing it, but it's not something that, they don't get involved in lobbying for stuff like this. That's not what they do.
Okay.
But they are aware that there are individuals and other groups out there that are. And I think from the Space Coast League of Cities, you know, we've taken a position that basically, you know, we're not in favor of this moving through, but, you know, once again, we're not a lobbying group either.
Is there any city in Brevard County that will not be negatively affected by this?
No.
It's going to get them all.
Yeah.
Okay. That means it's going to
We'll
be,
see, maybe Cocoa Beach may be less affected because they have such a large non-homesteaded population
Yeah.
over there. But the rest of the cities will be pretty badly affected.
I'm going to open up
okay.
for
That's
public
good, thank
comment.
you. No.
Thank you. This item is for information purposes only. We won't have any vote tonight on it, just to let the public know. But at this time, open up for public comment on this agenda item.
Hi. I'm Linda Lamon. I live at 740 Richard Street. I was wondering what the valuation you were using on the single-family residence. I want to make sure I heard it right.
The assessed value,
Uh-huh.
that's the assessed value that I got from Brevard County Tax Collector for a specific house.
Right, but what's the price range is what I'm asking. The
Are you-
specific
the
value
market
of the house,
value?
176? Okay.
Yeah, for a
So I'm a
house.
Realtor, and I don't know anywhere in Satellite Beach right now you can get a house
This
for one.
isn't what you can purchase a house
Okay,
for.
that's
This is
the
way
question.
that they're assessed by the property
It's
appraiser.
assessed.
Yeah, it's usually the.
Minus 25,000, right?
Yeah.
So you're at 225, okay. All right, that was my
What
only
is,
question.
which one's mine? Is one of mine?
Yours is the fourth single family.
Fourth one?
The
So
118,000.
my assessed value is 118,000, and I had a realtor tell me that I could list it for 325.
That's my confusion. Thank you.
Public comment portion still open? Please.
Hi, my name is Desiree Call, and I'm at 615 Barcelona Court. I just had questions. I don't think you clarified how many actual dollars were going to come from waste management. You said it was a 10% to a 15% increase, but you didn't say total dollars.
It's approximately $50,000 in
many?
revenue to the city. 50,000.
Okay. And the other question I had was,
You can move the microphone down. You don't have to. You can work with
I
your
know.
halves out of it.
Stop. Just kidding. What is so the millage rate going to 8.4, have you done research, like, I don't know, is that decent for beachside communities? Like, do we know what other beachside communities do? Would that be, consistent?
We can compare the millage rate to other beachside communities. It's difficult to do that because we provide different services.
Mhm.
So, for example, like with Indian Harbor Beach, their millage rate is much lower, but they don't have a fire department. So
Okay.
those types of things are different. They don't own 40% of their beachfronts, so theirs
Right.
is still on the tax roll. So there's those idiosyncrasies that you have to be aware of
Okay.
when you compare millage rates to other cities.
Okay, all right. I was just curious. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike still open?
Larry Whitney, Glenwood Avenue. I have two, maybe three comments, if I can remember the last one. First, if this city and other cities goes through with increasing taxes or increasing fees, whatever the case is, in order to close that $600,000 gap, there's a lead lag effect, and it seems to me that that would occur before the item goes on referendum. So if we approve these tax increases, it says to me that the general community, knowing that and understanding that, will definitely vote yes for the reduction, because they've already paid for it in advance through this vote. No? Yes?
I mean, personally, I don't think people think that way, honestly. But we have to think in this way. If it passes, I've never seen an initiative like this not pass in my entire life, which is a lot older than people think, by the way. So I've never seen them not pass. And if we do not raise revenue in this next budget year before it hits us in the year after that, we will not be able to raise our reserves to deal with another hurricane.
All right, maybe I wasn't clear. I totally agree with that. What I was suggesting is that generally speaking, and you guys have much more knowledge of this than I do, but generally speaking, those things do get approved by the general public. What I'm saying is if you go ahead with this tax plan of increasing taxes, that's 100% guarantee that it'll pass. The referendum will. That's all I was saying. I was just
Yeah.
making a comment. I
And
wasn't.
I think we're counting on Larry, that if we have to balance it out here, that statistically proven that it has a greater chance of passing.
What I'm suggesting is it makes total sense to go ahead and do what you have to do in order to close that gap that's going to be coming in the near future.
And there's another gap there also, and that's the stormwater portion of this.
Yes.
That we're not closing, even if everything stayed the same. There's so much.
That is the largest hike, by the way.
Right.
That
That's
is the largest
problem.
increase.
We're not going to get caught up there, no matter what we do. We're always working to just repair something that broke, rather than get that step ahead. So there's two portions of this, but the stormwater is trying to make a better environment, and we can't do it without even.
You also have the opportunity with the stormwater, if, we recommend that this is the fee that we need to just continue on, regardless of the $600,000, and that's completely separate. The millage rate, on the other hand, let's say for some reason it doesn't pass, which, if it doesn't, then you can make fun of me for the rest of my life. If it does not pass, that you do have the opportunity to reduce it the next year, because, clearly we wouldn't need it at that point,
And the other problem is with FEMA and getting funds back into our general fund, we're still haven't been paid for Matthew. So if an event averages out to be close to $400,000, we wait years to get our money back, and it eats the reserve. So we're out 2 years of hurricanes and gotten minimal dollars back.
And from my perspective, you can't use that accounts receivable in your operating budget. That has to be set aside, and if you ever get the money, you get the money, but you have to have reserves for future events. You just have to. There's no two ways about it. And I think that's a big selling point. Pardon?
It's not a credit card.
Right, and if the money ever comes back, you can use it for some kind of capital improvement or something like that, but you cannot, there's no way you can count on it for an operating budget. And the last thing, this is a question, and I'm not sure that anybody can answer it right now, but just something to think about. If the federal government comes in with some kind of infrastructure plan that leads down from the federal to the state to the cities, would there be any financial impact for us? It's just something to consider.
Oh, we pray.
We pray.
Well, of course, but.
But we've done extremely well with matching grants and so forth. So to have this funding there available that we have set aside so that we can match grants, we've done very, very well in our city. If I'm not mistaken, my figures are right, the DeSoto project, is 80% of it is paid for by a grant out there. So, we're trying to maximize the dollar. If you don't have the dollar, you can't play the game.
Understood. I was just thinking about it, the federal government, there's talk about a national infrastructure plan. I did not know how that would bleed or
Yeah, we don't
come
know
back to
yet.
the city.
We don't know either.
Yeah, we don't know
Right.
yet.
That's why I said it was just a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Floor is still open? Please. And then John, thank you.
Okay, my name is Andrew Schler. I live up here in Cassia. Okay, so the stormwater fund, the utility tax, that's equity distributed across everyone fairly, right? But the ad valorem is not, right? My ad valorem taxes will go up because I have a lot of properties with no exemptions. So I would say the stormwater, okay, we'll get the utility tax to help fund that, but the ad valorem goes up and funds everything else. We need to cut services, I think, to keep that low. Because too much money. So that's all I have to say. Stick with that. And the water tax, my water bills are already really high, so that would be another burden to pay, so. I like the stormwater, with the proposals last night were all look good, they look great, but I'm against the ad valorem tax.
Thank you. John?
I just wanted to clarify that we wouldn't be raising the millage rate if it wasn't for the $25,000 homestead exemption that the state put on the ballot. Against our wishes, we lobbied heavily against that. We were up in Tallahassee speaking against that at every turn, and it still passed. So, it's either that or cut services.
John Fergus, 135 Maple. Courtney made a comment that I want to build on a little bit. Perhaps in kind of Larry's concern. I recall back in the 90s when the city put on the utility tax and there was a bunch of fuss. What council did, they said, we're going to do this for a certain period of time or something. And from what I heard from Courtney is, if the exemption did not pass, and that's not under our control, that's the entire state voting on it, but if by some miracle it didn't pass, it would seem prudent as you're leading up to it and doing the budget, is making the point that if it does not pass, we're going to drop back. We're not going to just do it and leave it there. That we will adjust. And the other side of it is, I recall, it was in the first decade of the century, I think. Lorraine and I did well enough getting grants for the city that Michael told us we had to stop because the city ran out of match funds. Therefore, it is prudent, especially if you thought there might be a federal program coming down the road, which everything I've read says our president expects to leverage half of, 500 billion or something by a factor of 1.5 or 2 or something. In other words, he's looking for a larger contribution from the locals than the feds would put in. And if that's the case, then if you want to tap that at all, you need to make sure you have the cash to do it. Otherwise, we get into the problem that we had before of borrowing money. And we don't want to do that. So that's another reason to build up the reserves. You've got the storm problem, plus you have missed opportunities if you don't have the cash in hand. So.
And that's a good point is, we are looking at, we have a reserve issue because we went through 2 hurricanes. So we have to do something. We cannot go into another hurricane without a good reserve. And so, when we talk about we would rather cut services, I would just remind, people if that's something they want to do, we would just need your input on what services you would like cut, what parks you want to close, what right-of-ways you don't want maintained as well, how many police officers you don't want to have anymore, how many minutes you're willing to wait for the ambulance to come to your door. Those are the types of things we would need to know.
The mic is still open for public comment on this item. Hear no further, I'll close the public comment portion of agenda item 8. Brittany, any further questions from council? Here none. Thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda number 9. Ordinance 1156, which is a second reading. Jim?
Ordinance number 1156, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, amending the City of Satellite Beach 1998 comprehensive plan as amended by revising the future land use map for property located at 506 Cassia Boulevard from CH Church and Synagogue to RLA residential low density, 1 to 6 dwelling units per acre, providing for inclusion of ordinance and revised future land use map in the comprehensive plan, providing an effective date. That's the second reading of ordinance number 1156.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 1156 on second reading.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilman Breimer. Discussion from council. Here none at this time. Open up agenda item 9, which is ordinance number 1156 for public comment.
I just want to clarify it's a redo. We had a mistake in the ordinance, so we've had to push it through again, so we apologize for that.
Thank you.
Councilman
Oh,
Gibson?
excuse me. Did I open for public? No. I did?
You did.
I did. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Catino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 10, ordinance 1157, and this is also a second reading.
Ordinance number 1157, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, amending the city's official zoning map by rezoning real property located at 506 Cassia Boulevard from ITU institutional to R2 single-family residential, amending the zoning map accordingly, providing an effective date. It's the second reading of ordinance number 1157.
Thank you. Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 1157 on second reading.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Osmer, second by Councilwoman Gibson. Any discussion from the council? Hearing none, at this time, open up for public comment on agenda item 10, ordinance 1157. Hearing none, back to council. Further council? Lenore?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 11, take action on debt consolidation of the SunTrust Bank loan and owner finance agreement.
So we have a SunTrust Bank loan for a fire truck, and we have just signed an agreement with JEML Properties for a piece of land on Jackson Avenue. The SunTrust Bank loan, at the beginning when we signed the agreement, was at a 2.71% interest rate. Due to the corporate tax laws that just got passed, that rate is going to increase to a 3.292%. So getting that information and knowing that the JEML Properties was at a 4.5, we thought maybe this would be better if we looked to see if we could consolidate them to have a lower interest rate but keep the same terms. So you may remember that the JEML Properties was a pay for 4 years and then have the balloon payment at the very end. And the concern was, where does that $400,000 come from to make that balloon payment as well? So what TD Bank, who is our current banker, and then we also have a couple other loans with them currently, has provided a offer to loan up to $1 million to pay off the two loans at a 3.08% fixed interest rate. The annual payments would be a little over $203,000. This is going to increase our current annual debt payment out of the capital assets fund by about $97,000, but will result in a savings of interest payments of approximately $69,000 over the remaining term. So this would consolidate both of them. We would lose the balloon payment. It would make it a little more expensive for the next few years, but the term will still end, and they both will be paid off by 2023. So that's what I have in front. We will, the budget impacts would, like I said, would increase to $97,000, but at least we're saving $69,000 in interest and putting that towards principal.
Great. Thank you very much. Comments from council?
This is just a 5-year deal, basically, that comes out saving us $69,000 in the long run.
Right. And I included in your packet is the amortization schedules from both loans currently, plus the new amortization schedule that TD Bank has offered to show where the savings is on all of that.
Yep. Thank you. Further comments before I open up the public? This time, open up agenda item 11 for public comment. Hearing no public comment, back to council.
I'll make a motion to authorize staff to consolidate the existing SunTrust Bank loan and the owner financing agreement with JEML Properties.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilman Osmer. Further discussion? Hearing none. Lenore?
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. I like saving money where we can. At this time, we've been going for an hour and 10 minutes. We could take a 5-minute break.
Mark already left.
Mark already broke, but we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we'll have a recess and be back no later than 8:15. We're not
Okay.
Thank you. Reconvene our meeting, move into agenda item 12. Take action on establishing city values. I believe we have something at our desk on this.
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
just give you a quick,
Please.
overview. So yes, the purpose of this item is developing a key component of the work we're going to do with the Citizen Budget Committee, and several of the appointed members are in the audience tonight. So I thank him for coming out and showing, dedication to the cause. But essentially what we were looking to do is, as we discussed at the last council meeting, is establish a set of city values that could be used as essentially guiding points as the members of the committee look at all the variety of services that we provide as a city, and to see how well the services that we provide, that we currently fund, are matching up with what we perceive to be a good set of citywide values. So what we've gathered and put together is a handout before you, and for those in the audience, there should be some extras on the table. But there's a couple pages that are the values that were presented, or sent to staff directly from each council member. Those are included. The city management has put together a summary of those to try to kind of encapsulate them together at the end of the first couple pages, and then the back 2 pages are the value statements we gathered from our department directors. So we tried to kind of get some good input and get some ideas. You'll see a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of recurring themes that come across when you kind of scan them. And so we tried to, again, in the summary, which is on page 2 at the bottom, the possible combined value statements, we try to put all of those different ideas under those 6 headings. But anyway, it's really for you to discuss and advise.
Okay, thank you. Council,
I kind of read through all of the stuff that, we all sent in, and I think the combined value statement the staff put together kind of ties everything in really well.
Yeah.
Over all of the things that we put down and staff contributed to also. So I don't see anything there to change.
Because I've read the department, the directors, and if you read most of what the council put down, it's pretty the same thing. So I agree. I think the combined value statement there will give a good direction to that committee.
Do you need a motion to that extent, or?
Please.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we, as council, accept the combined value statements listed on page 204.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Councilman Breimer, second by Vice Mayor Montanaro. At this time, open up for public comment on this agenda item. Hearing none, bring it back to council. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, no, just a comment there. Courtney, pulling all this stuff together, I don't know who all did this, but I think it's pretty nice pretty neat that you could get it down into 6 things like that. That's not easy to do when you get this stuff together, whoever did it, but thank you, whoever did it.
The only thing I wanted to say is I think the combined statements are great. I think we should, put them on the website, put them out on Facebook, and get them out to our community, because it incorporates a lot of great ideas, and it brings to the community what the vision of, the leadership of our city is looking at.
Further? One more?
Councilman Gibson? Yes. Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes. Motion passes. Staff, thank you very, very much.
Good job.
Moving on to agenda item 13, discuss, take action on proposal to move forward with the second lowest bidder for the result of requesting proposal for solar energy to City Hall. Suzanne.
Thank you, Mayor. You will recall that we originally went out to bid for the solar service on City Hall back in June of last year. Went through the bid process, ultimately recommended awarding to the highest ranked vendor, Brevard Solar. At that time, and since around November, we have been actively working on contractual related items with that vendor. In early March, we received a letter and a visit from the owner of the company, essentially withdrawing from the project due to some personal medical issues. That letter is in your agenda packet. As part of his company's withdrawal, essentially he's dialing back the level of his involvement in his business. He also committed to, in the future, and specifically I think it mentions like November this year, being able to have his company provide a smaller 10 kilowatt system just basically donating that to the city for us to put on some other, small facility, public works building, a park pavilion, something. So that's in there, and we have that in writing from him, but essentially that put us back to who was our second highest ranked bidder in the process, and that was this ESA Clean Footprint. They've actually had a rebranding, so now they're called ESA Solar Energy since last we spoke to them. And essentially since this happened, we've reached out to them and re-engaged with them and have confirmed that the pricing, in spite of a lot of changes in the market and tariffs going into place that are actually affecting the prices of a lot of the materials needed for this, the pricing is essentially going to be very similar to what we ended up with Brevard Solar, which was enough information for us to know that we could go ahead and bring this back to you and say that we're recommending we move forward with the second-ranked vendor, ESA Solar Energy, and ask for your permission to move forward with negotiating an agreement.
Well, I mean, you say that it's similar, but it's not. It's less of a system, and it's $10,000 more, and
Okay, you're talking about the kilowatt size,
Yeah.
et cetera? Yeah, so we had, in our negotiations with Brevard Solar, we had really kind of discussed and whittled down the size of that system because we realized that the shading that the system provides to the building would reduce the need for electricity anyway, because the air conditioning wouldn't kick on as much. So that had actually changed since we last brought this to you. So we had already dropped down the size of our system. You're right, though, this, ultimately, the size of the system here is, I'm sorry.
Am I incorrect? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's okay.
The Brevard Solar was going to do an 82.5 kilowatt. The ESA is quoting us 80.9, so it is, again, less and more money.
Yeah, so yes, to your point, it's a slightly smaller kilowatt system. In our estimation, it wasn't big enough to make a real difference in our long-term savings, off of our power bill. The price, the reason we're happy with the price, shall I say, is in January, there were tariffs that were placed on foreign imports of solar panels and on aluminum and steel. And based on some numbers we looked at with these vendors, I mean, it has increased prices 25, 35%. So we're actually happy that we're still in this range. It sounds kind of bad. Yes, it is going to cost us more, but it's not a whole lot more given what it could have been. We really worked, hard to try to keep it there. So.
Do we know from other, like the Brevards, do we have another, okay, I guess here's my, I'm not trying to make this too difficult, but in light of our current financial situation, okay, I think every penny counts. And looking at this, and I want us to be on solar because I know it's going to save us a tremendous amount of money, it's better for the environment, but can we go to Solar Energy Systems as well and look for a bid from them and see, I mean, are we putting all our eggs in one basket that this rate increase is really what it should be, or are they taking an opportunity to charge us more money because they know that we're now coming to them? I guess I would just like to feel comfortable that I know that this is a legitimate amount of money, even though it's $10,000, it's still $10,000.
Right. So the way the bid process works, following the state laws on this, we would essentially have to, if we chose not to move forward with the second ranks, the process that we did publicly, we would actually have to just sort of start over. So we'd have to issue a whole new RFP, and we can certainly do that, but it would put us back to that starting point. And, my fear would be, I don't know if this would be the case, but my fear would be that the deal, as it were, that we're getting with ESA now might not be on the table if we go through a whole nother bidding process, because everybody's affected by these tariffs and.
And we're still able to take advantage of their current inventory, so. We won't be able to do that as time goes on.
Further questions?
I think also, I mean, are we going to try to take advantage of that other 10 kilowatt free system they're offering us? I just say that from the point, because if you add that 10 to the 80, then we're back up to 90, which was the original. And also, you're talking about an $18,000 to $20,000 free. So the $10,000 more would be, that this is costing us really is a wash.
Yeah, but we weren't going to use that 10 that on this building.
Right.
We would use it on another.
Right, but I mean, for the big picture of the city, though, it's still the same in the end.
Well, is that in addition to the solar canopy that they had offered up for the DeSoto Storm project, or is that Did Brevard Solar offer up a solar project for DeSoto as well? Is that off the table now as well, or is
They had offered that in negotiations, but we never got to a signed agreement that we would have brought to you because of delays with the vendor. So we never got that in writing officially, other than just, a handshake or verbal, I guess.
At this time, let me open up agenda item 13 for public comment.
John Fergus, 135 Maple. When I saw this on the agenda, I kind of shared Mindy's concerns that somebody might try to milk us. Sounds like it's reasonable. And we did hear that if you start messing with number 3, then basically we start over. And I think I could guarantee that the prices will come in higher. And so, plus, it'd delay it even further. It'd be 2019 probably before we'd see it. I think this is a good move. Steve made a good point that with what Brevard Solar is offering as a consolation prize. I remember that he came to the Sustainability Board a long time ago and talked about doing a solar canopy gratis. So he's still working in that direction, apparently, or planning to. I'd like to see it done as long as the payback period still is reasonable. That's the key point. If that begins to spread out to something that's ridiculous, then we need to rethink it. But if it's still reasonable, eventually we will have a system up there providing electricity for nothing. And as long as that is for more than something like 6 months out of a 25-year system, that's something worth pursuing. And so it sounds like it's under control and they're being reasonable. Now if things get derailed again, then I guess you can go to number 3. But there was a point there was a break point. I mean, what was it, 90.4, 90, then 88.7 or something. So the rankings weren't very much. At some point, there was a pretty good break, but right there. So I'd suggest let her rip, see where it goes.
Alan Dillon, Kenwood Court, Satellite Beach. I agree with John. We need to go and we need to do something. Two things come to mind is maintenance on this, on the solar system. I mean, you're going to have maintenance on it, and how much is it going to cost and who's going to pay for it? Because those things are going to age. What's the life expectancy of them? 25 years? And certainly, what have you got to do over those 25 years? For sure, you're going to have to clean them. But my other concern is when a hurricane comes through, not if, but when a hurricane comes through, it rips it off the building, who's going to pay for it? Or is it, you're going to have a reserve up for that? I agree we need something to help us out here, but I think we need to be cautious in what we put up there, because we could turn around here and get a couple hurricanes this year, and now we're trying to grab the money to put it back up there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Public comment?
Larry Whitney, Glenwood Avenue. Just from my own experience, I would caution amortizing a system like this over a 25-year period. At the rate of change of technology, we can expect that new, cheaper, better, faster things are going to come down the pike, and you're going to want to change this out. So when you look at it from an amortization standpoint, personally, I wouldn't. I mean, you'd have to look at GAAP and talk to the auditors, but 5 to 10 years is about as far as I think you can possibly go with that kind of technology, because it changes so rapidly. It'll become an antique in a short period of time. But I am for it. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. We need to move in that direction. But the other thing I wanted to ask is this system modular? Can you add batteries later without making a big configuration change?
Yes.
Then that's great.
Yeah. So just to address some of that, we will be negotiating the maintenance with the contract, so we'll bring that back to you with the negotiated contract. The second item is they're all hurricane rated. So we made it clear that they needed to rate them, that I would be very upset if they ended up in the street. So we talked about that at length at our last meeting. And then also, if the system is up there, if the city, if it's providing electricity, we don't really care if it's the coolest, newest electronic technology, as long as it's up there providing electricity. So it will be changed out when it no longer provides electricity. So that's the way solar panels work for us anyway. If we move to other buildings and there's better technology, of course we'll take advantage of that. But we don't really, we don't care if it's old. If it still works, it's great. We keep pipes until they're dying. So we'll be doing the same thing with the solar panels, trust me.
The public comment period still open? Hearing no further, bring it back to council.
I'll make a motion to approve the award of request for proposal number 161707, solar energy for City Hall to the second vendor, ESA Solar Energy LLC.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro.
Second.
Second by Councilman Osmer. Thank you. Discussion again?
I just wanted to go on the record to say, for the hurricane situation, my neighbors has solar panels. He's on 80%. And I just want to say, we had the roof for the building behind us was blown off of the house by something and landed on my neighbor's roof, who has solar panels, and his solar panels were not damaged. And the one that was damaged was the old-fashioned hot water one, but the rest of the solar panels actually stood up perfectly fine. I don't think he ran into any issues at all. I don't think he had to file. He gets a new roof, but...
Oh, that's the other issue too, is our insurance would cover anything like that.
And he has insurance.
So we insure any new product, any new addition to our buildings, so that would be covered under insurance. Sorry.
Okay, further comments? Lenore?
Councilman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, staff. Okay, agenda item 14 is the April 18th meeting. Again, like I always say, if there's additions to it, please see me or Courtney on it. Moving on to agenda item 15, appointments to boards. We have, what's the new sheet here? Let's look at sustainability.
It's on the back. You got, oh, you got it. Okay.
Yeah, I got sustainability board here.
Yep.
7 members, 2 alternates. And what do we need anything there?
It says one primary member.
Where are you at?
On the right here.
Sure. Yeah.
One primary member.
I'm looking here. Okay.
So
All right,
if
so
that's-
if we have a
That's
motion
the
on
case,
that?
I'll make a motion to appoint Mark Boyd as the member to the Sustainability Board as a primary member, expiring 1/4/2020.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilwoman Gibson. Further discussion? Hearing none, Lenore?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilman Gibson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes.
I'd like to appoint, we have two primary member vacancies on the Beautification Board, and we have a alternate, her name is Vicki Hawks. I would like to appoint her as a primary member to the Beautification Board with a term ending 5/9/19.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilman Osmer. Discussion? Lenore?
Councilman Gibson?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes.
On the new appointment down here for Jez, do we have to formally, make a motion to have her as a non-voting member?
Please.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Didn't we do that before?
We never formally did that. We created the position, but we never moved her into it. So what's showing up is, I'm telling Mark that we have a position open on the Sustainability Board, when really we had not yet, so.
Okay.
So
I
that's
remember us
because of that.
discussing that and
Right.
thought, okay.
I'll make a motion to appoint Jazzy Hennings as a non-resident, non-voting member of the Sustainability Board.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilman Gibson. Discussion? Lenore?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Catino?
Yes. We've got one more reappointment there.
I'll make a motion to appoint Daniel Hamling as a primary member, reappointing him to the Sampson's Island Working Board with a term ending 5/6/2021.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilman Osmer. Discussion? Lenore?
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Catino?
Yes. I think that catches everything?
We have an alternate member on Board of Adjustment. We don't have any applications.
Right, I mean, there's a few of those we have, so.
All right, we're good.
Again, if each of the council will take a look at your particular boards, if we need members to them, canvass people you know who'd like to be on it.
I wonder if we could, for the people who applied to the Budget Advisory Committee, would you mind if we contacted them to see if they
I
wanted
already
to serve?
reached out.
Did you?
I already did.
Yeah, and they had no.
Okay. Right. Moving on to agenda item 16, adoption of minutes.
I'd like to make a motion for us to approve the minutes from the City Council workshop meeting from March 8th, 2018.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Gibson. The second?
There's three of them.
I'm working my way through it.
Okay.
As well as the City Council regular meeting minutes from March 21st, 2018. And is that it?
There was a workshop for
There's a
21st
workshop
too.
on there, too.
The City
March
Council
21st.
workshop meeting from March 21st, 2018.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilwoman Gibson, second by Councilman Osmer. Question? Hear none. Lenore?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Mayor Catino?
Yes. Any further business for council? Staff, thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.